Good evening, Tavernites. It is I, your illustrious host, Tyler Randall. I have no title, no pomp, no circumstance for this evening's broadcast. Just me. The smoking lamp is lit, and as always in the tavern, we drink. And what are we drinking? Modelo, of course. Mm. Drink them if you got them. Smoke them if you got them. What do we have for you this evening? So, a couple things. One, we have a new study that has come out in Europe showing that 71% of the suspected adverse reactions from the COVID-19 vaccine in Europe specifically occurred in 4.2% of the vaccine batches, occurring mostly in the early batches, and it wanes in the later batches. The early batches, the batches that contained more, there's a correlation between the batches containing more vials early on had more adverse reactions. And this is coupled with the data that we already know about, efficacy being none, and stopping the spread being none, and that the origins of the disease being that it came from the Wuhan lab, and we were lied to about it, and Fauci's leaked emails and leaked text messages show that the disease itself was man-made. It was released one way or the other, whether it was intentionally or not, on the American people and the world at large. And this is accompanied with a chart. I'd highly recommend everybody go to the website that's listed above, which is hyperlink onlinelibrary.wiley.com/doi/10.11/ECI.13998. I know I can't put the link in here that you can click, but you can click on it yourself and check it out. Let's look at the chart. So we can see the distribution on the chart. On the axis on the left, we see suspected adverse events, and on the bottom we see vaccine doses per batch. So we see that the doses per batch in the early days, in the early part of the rollout, in the 100,000, we could see a huge spike in adverse events, and then we can see that the majority of them fall along the distribution of the green line, which is still statistically significant and serious events. And then also at the bottom we see yellow, which is showing at 0 if none. But I will say that in this video, you will in the video that in the data, we show that as more data comes in, this is all independently researched. It is not funded by anybody, and there is zero conflict of interest. So what does this tell us? This tells us that these are the early data showing that the vaccine itself did more harm than good. In 2021, as it rolled out, it was a horrible idea from the Trump administration to go to warp speed to roll it out. It was completely political from the outset, as you saw everybody from the president to the vice president, the current vice president saying, if Republicans roll it out, if Trump rolls it out, I'm not going to take it. And then as soon as they got power, everybody had to take it. You were excluded from work, you were excluded from schools, you were excluded from public life if you didn't take it. And it was one of the greatest gaslightings of all time. Disease by which if you had no comorbidities, you had a 99% chance of surviving. And if you took the vaccine and its boosters, you had an increased chance of adverse events. Now, I will say that this data is only coming from Europe, and the data that we showed in the chart, and from the concise evidence of 71% of the adverse events coming from 4.2% of the batches, which is incredibly high. The fact that we know that it was tested only on 8 mice, and the clinical trials basically didn't exist. It's just a confirmation that we were lied to, that it was all fake from the beginning, and it never was what they said it was. The cure was worse than the disease, basically. Let's take a moment to take that in. Is there any good news from this? A little bit. For those of us like myself that waited and said, I'm going to wait my turn, I'm going to see how it goes. This is me personally. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to let all the elderly people get it, all the immunocompromised people get it, the vaccine, I mean. We'll see how it goes. And as all of the data and all of the suppression came out, started to look towards the light and away from the shadows, all of the shadows being the suppression, deplatforming of doctors who are saying, hey, this is the data, this is what we know. And as it comes out, as it is, all the data is coming out and everybody is going to look at it, even though the media does not want you to see it. You're not going to see this on CNN. You're not going to see this on Facebook. You're not going to see this on Twitter. As this all comes out, we're going to see this as the biggest bamboozling of the world, the biggest lie. All this amidst the Ukraine war, where more and more money is being sent to the war by the US and the world at large. France is having an enormous amount of unrest over a shooting. They're burning the city down. Multiculturalism is failing there. But then at the same time, they have the temerity to send missiles to Ukraine. We have Nikki Haley coming out and saying, yeah, Ukraine's going to be our biggest ally, and yeah, they're going to join NATO, which is the largest war hawk platform that I could possibly think. Yeah, Ukraine's going to join NATO, which is just only going to further galvanize the Russian government to use nuclear weapons, to push them into a corner. That's not an overstatement. It's not an overreaction. It's not hyperbolic. It is simply the truth. And then we see that the American government comes to the realization that we just happen to find $6 billion to give the Wagner Group, who for about 2 hours was the world's darlings. You saw all of the media come out and say, yes, the Wagner Group, freedom fighters, going against Russia, going against Putin, they're going to stop him. And as soon as the money hit their bank account, they stopped short of Moscow. Very weird, very odd. So this is the news that's dominating the news cycle right now. And you're not seeing anything on the COVID-19 hoax that's been going along. It's insane. It's crazy. On top of that, we have some good news. Some good news in media, in culture. The Sound of Freedom film, led by Jim Caviezel, is a huge hit. It dethroned Indiana Jones as the #1 movie on 4th of July. It made more money in less theaters than the Disney movie. I'm sorry, my nose is super itchy right now. Hold on. Goodness gracious, I look like Hunter Biden. 10% for the big guy. We're seeing that Disney's $300 million bomb at the box office, not just bomb, because that's not counting the advertising budget and all of the money that went into pushing this movie into theaters. We're seeing that media like The Sound of Freedom, that is based on a true story, that happens to deal with the subject matter of human trafficking, that doesn't even touch on the organ harvesting and the adrenochrome portion of this, just the southern border, just the child trafficking, just the sex trade, which is hundreds of billions of dollars a year. We're shedding light on it, and people are interested in it. People want to see more of this content. People want to see more of this true story that is unfolding. There's a great podcast with Jim Caviezel I just watched. The name of the podcast is escaping me, but it was a long-form 2-hour interview where he details that Sound of Freedom 2 is definitely on the way. It deals with the Haiti debacle, which involves the Clinton Foundation and how they trafficked kids through that crisis. they took advantage of that crisis in order to traffic children into the US as well. Sorry, my nose is super itchy. It's all this pollen in the air here. Sorry. And the next project for Jim Caviezel after that would probably be The Resurrection of Christ, which Mel Gibson is working on. It's in the script version. It's probably going to be 2 movies. That's the news I have for you on that front. But people are waking up. They're starting to see that the war in Ukraine is largely manufactured. It's a hoax. It is a way to reorganize the world, to reorganize the West, to elevate the World Economic Forum and their allies at the UN to dominance. To try and get Ukraine into NATO is just insane, in my view, because it's the most corrupt country in Europe and has been for decades. That's indisputable and cannot be argued. We paid a Russian mercenary group to do a coup in which, once they got the money, they just didn't do the coup. We've funded both sides of this war, and the rest of the world is also helping fund it. And the COVID-19 origins and the efficacy and origins of the vaccine are being suppressed. All these things coming together, all the things happening in Europe and in America today, it does show how terrible the world is, but also that there is light, there is hope at the end of the tunnel. I'm not even going to get into the trivial political portions of how our president is clearly a failing, doddering fool. He is in the late stages of dementia. That's also inarguable. The corruption with his family, the deals with China and Ukraine that spurred this war in the first place, and the persecution of President Trump to the effect that they're trying to interfere with the election via via the judicial system, weaponization of the judicial system. Another news story that you might have missed, the IRS is warning that there is a new scam going out where you might be told that the government owes you money, and to just click a link, which will get malware into your system and hold hostage your bank accounts. That's also, that's just par for the course at this point. It makes you wonder why we have 80,000 new IRS agents that are only being armed with guns to come to your house, and they are monitoring your $600 PayPal transactions. It doesn't seem fair, does it? It doesn't seem fair that all these things are happening in concert, almost as if they are meant to happen in concert. You see BlackRock starting a reconstruction bank in Ukraine. Why? Because the war is going to come to an end, because Ukraine has gained no ground. They have done nothing but lose all of the money and arms we've given them, and have lost every decisive battle. Have not moved forward at all against Russia. Russia seems to not even be trying at all. And with all that happening, it's insane to think that we should be giving them more money and more arms if it's just going to be wasted in order to give the World Economic Forum and their allies at BlackRock and Blackstone and these banks to reconstruct Ukraine. Oh, we're just going to rebuild it. Even though we're the ones that destroyed it. We're the ones who sent the money there. We're the ones who funded both sides. Why? It smacks familiar of the Iraq conflict and how the reconstruction of that country did absolutely nothing. Billions and trillions of dollars wasted. Bad money after bad. All of these things, all at the same time. This is a stream of conscience, by the way. I'm just speaking off the top of my mind and telling you what I've researched. There's hope. There's hope at the end of this tunnel, because people are starting to notice. And if you watch this, hopefully it makes you notice, makes you look into these things, makes you want to research and want to be more secure in how you do business and how you invest your money and who you put your trust in government and who you might vote for. I'm not going to put my money behind RFK Jr. I'm not going to put my money behind Elon Musk. I'm not going to put my faith behind Donald Trump even at this point, because even though they persecute him and he might win the nomination as a Republican, I don't see him actually doing anything to change any of this. What we really need is a convention of states and a reconvening of the Constitution in this country. You see the ATF failing at the Supreme Court level to regulate frames and receivers. It's another good thing. It's another hopeful thing. So that precedent has now been set. Affirmative action being struck down at the Supreme Court level. Another good precedent being set. So the ship is correcting itself, but it's not getting back to what it was in the 90s, when we had actual economic prosper here in the country. We had actual diversity, real diversity of thought. We had racial unity in this country, despite what the newspapers tell you today. It's crazy. I'm hoping to be doing more of these. I'm actually looking to get a teleprompter to make these more concise so that I can actually put more bullet points and be more on point. The stream of consciousness kind of way of putting these out isn't the best format, and I'm sorry for that, and I'm looking forward to correcting that and making it a little bit more informative, a little bit shorter, not as long form, but hope is there, people. The hope is there. All you have to do is embrace it. Look to the light and not to the shadows. Love each other. Hope that you can show your enemies that you are the light. You are the example. Be the community that you want to see in this world. Create that community in real life, not just online. And be a leader. As always, I am your host, Tyler Randall. I love you. Show love. Be love. Christ is King. Good luck. See you later.